Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily, the first English news program in Poland. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. During today's Law and Justice Party convention held in Lublin, the leader of the party, Jarosław Kaczynski, touched on the subject of the adoption of the euro currency by Poland. According to Kaczynski, Poland will adopt the euro in the future because of the Treaty of Accession, but only when it's going to be beneficial to the country.
Poland's adoption of the euro is in the interests of other countries. Poland's adoption of the euro will be beneficial, but we have to ask ourselves whether it's going to be beneficial for Poles now or not. We are obliged to adopt the euro because the Treaty of Accession says so, but it doesn't give us a deadline, and that's why we can say that we will adopt the euro sometime in the future, because we are obliged to, and we are and will be the member of the European Union. But we will adopt it only when it's going to be in our interest, when we reach the level of gross domestic product and the standard of living close enough to Germany's.
A jesteśmy I będziemy w Unii Europejskiej.
Wspólna waluta zakłada jedną politykę monetarną.
The common currency is supposed to create one monetary policy which will serve the economies on different levels of development. So it's good to have your own central bank that controls the monetary policy. It controls its own currency, interest rates. The National Bank of Poland has been doing it the right way for a long time. The Polish economy can be a role model of the fair and good economic development for the Poland in its entirety. And I'm sure that we will be such a role model. We will use that chance thanks to the Polish zloty, strong economy, united nation and patriotism. We won't miss that chance.
Tę szansę wykorzystamy. Nie zaprzepaścimy jej. Niech tak się stanie.
On the 13th of April, Poles celebrate the National Remembrance Day of the Katyn tragedy, where 22,000 Poles were murdered by the Soviet army, including the prisoners from 4 different POW camps located in the Soviet Union.
Ludobójstwo katyńskie pochłonęło 22 000 ludzkich istnień.
The Katyn genocide devoured 22,000 human lives. With them they buried the hope of their families for the world to ever hear the truth. Yet the criminals couldn't hide it for long. Today the Katyn forest is a place of rest for the victims, but also a pantheon of national remembrance in which they cultivate the recollection of all the murdered victims. Today, living in independent Poland, we can honor our soldiers aloud and with pride. Today we recall the names of the heroes who were omitted for years. On the 13th of April, we pay respects to our ancestors, bringing back the memory of them to their families. Today we preach, we remember, and we'll never forget.
For the 9th time, Poles gather in Warsaw to lay tulips on the pavement in front of the presidential palace as a way of honoring the memory of late Maria Kaczynska, the wife of President Lech Kaczynski. The presidential couple, along with 94 high-ranking government and military officials, lost their lives in the plane crash in Smolensk in 2010. In 2008, one of the tulip strains was named after the First Lady.
The tradition began on April 13, 2010, when the remains of the tragically deceased First Lady were brought back to the country and has been continued to this day. Those who come to lay yellow tulips for Maria Kaczynska say the First Lady was an incredible person.
She was an incredible person, a truly great human being, at least in my opinion. I think she was an amazing First Lady, and I wish all First Ladies were like her. She had a big heart and a wonderful soul.
I arranged the tulips I brought into the letters MK, Maria Kaczynska. It's just a small gesture from us. We have the need to come here because she was an extraordinary person and we want to commemorate her that way. She had to withstand numerous media slugs, but she always had a smile on her face. The initiative Tulips for Maria Kaczynska was first organized by the Gazeta Polska weekly clubs, which continue to support the event every year.
It's a great way to express our admiration for her as a woman and to remind the Polish society of how a wonderful person she was and how important was her role as the First Lady of Poland.
President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, also joins in on the celebration every year. Władysław Michalski, the spokesman for the president, laid flowers in his name. She was an exceptional First Lady, an exceptional person. She's truly worthy of honoring her memory in this way, and that's what we do. We commemorate her by laying these tulips. Maria Kaczynska often stressed that her favorite flowers were indeed yellow tulips.
The Polish Territorial Defense Force is continuing to grow. The 4th branch of the Polish Army is now close to 20,000 men strong. The 54th Battalion is now being established in the region of Warsaw. The soldiers will consist of people living in the eastern Warsaw and its suburbs.
Some of the residents in the right bank districts of Warsaw, Wołomin and Legionowo got up at 5 a.m. today to report to the 54th Battalion. The newly formed battalion will include people from all walks of life, bringing their diverse life experience into the fold.
Prowadzę firmę o profilu ogrodniczym.
I run a gardening company, but also a workout and diet council.
I z doradztwem żywieniowym.
Jestem dyrektorem do spraw mediów w
I am a director in one of the largest television and production companies and a mother of a 10-year-old boy.
Jestem mamą 10-letniego chłopca.
The first rotational or weekend training of the newly formed battalion includes tactical actions.
W dniu dzisiejszym na moim punkcie
At my exercise, the soldiers learn about the so-called secured march. It's the type of march where the soldiers make sure that every single one of them is safe while moving forward. The task of the Territorial Defense Forces in the event of war is to support operational troops. During territorial peace, they are engaged in anti-crisis activities. We operate in cooperation with the fire brigades and the police. In example, we help with the search of missing persons. The Territorial Defense Forces were formed over 2 years ago. Over 19,500 soldiers now serve in its branches. New volunteers are being accepted in an ongoing recruitment.
That's it for today. See you next time on Poland Daily. But stay tuned for the Poland Daily Weather Report, followed by the Poland Daily Business section.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Otterstein and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Let's start with tonight in Poland. So as we can see, the temperatures will vary from -2 degrees in Olsztyn, so quite cool, -1 degree in Bydgoszcz, and the maximum of 5 degrees in the area of Krakow, also in Lublin, 4 degrees in Rzeszów, Katowice and Wrocław, and showers will be appearing in the area of Katowice and Warsaw. Clear skies around Olsztyn, Gdańsk and Koszalin tonight. Now let's check the forecast for tomorrow. So there will be a lot of sun in the southern regions, also in Lower Silesia around Wrocław, so-called Polish Miami. We'll see 11 degrees in Rzeszów, Krakow, Katowice as well, 9 degrees in central Poland, and the minimum of 7 degrees in Gdańsk. Relatively nice and sunny tomorrow. The most clouds will be seen around Szczecin. And now let's check the upcoming days. So Monday, nice and sunny in the southern regions, but only 7 degrees in the northeast. And on Tuesday, a bit warmer, 12 degrees in the southwest, 13 degrees in the northeast, but with showers as well. And Wednesday's looking much nicer, up to 16 degrees in central Poland, 14 degrees in the southwest. And some showers will be appearing in the western parts as well. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
Welcome to a business edition of Poland Daily. Our guest is Professor Zbigniew Krysiak of Warsaw School of Economics. Nice. So welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
And you are also founder and operator, main representative of Institute of Schuman Thought. Why Robert Schuman is such an important person to you?
Yeah, so Robert Schuman was that person, who together, with Konrad Adenauer, they established, the Community of European Nations. And this, decades, 2 or 3 decades after they established that, we perceive as a very good development for the economy, for the values in Europe, the Christian values.
That was just after the war. The economic boom lasted several years.
Yes, exactly. So the coal and steel, community, then a Commonwealth of the European economic, community. These were, basically directions Robert Schuman took, to create a community of European nations in the different areas. And, we see that, what Brussels is currently doing and the European Union, Christian. They are just, you know, going, in the opposite direction to that what Robert Schuman proposed. And therefore we think that let's take the Schuman's Europe back. You know, we need, you know, really, promote Schuman and, you know, take his ideas, because his ideas are not theoretical, you know, they were very, practical. He was, as you know, a lawyer and a very good economist, you know, and his, a success, you know, for instance, to implement coal and steel industry was, amazing, you know, because, you know, this, brought the entire Europe to kind of a very good cooperation. And nowadays, you know, these leaders in Brussels, they are rather trying, you know, to promote the Artiello Spinelli, who is opposite to the Christian values. He's rather going, you know, to remove these Christian values. This is his purpose. And basically, they create this, guys who are voting or promoting this Artiello Spinelli ideas. Ideology, I would say, is more dangerous than the ideology, presented in the Soviet Union, because this ideology is just connected as well to the capital, to the neoliberal, you know, directions, and together with this ideology, putting together with the capital, fix a very strong position for to lobby, you know, this, in different, economic and as well social areas. And we see, you know, currently what is happening, you know, the solidarity and the unity and peace which promoted Robert Schuman currently is just breaking down. Solidarity, Nord Stream 2, for instance, this is losing solidarity, you know. There is not, you know, we observe a Europe of two speeds, you know. They are just, focus on the, basically, like France and Germany, their interest. The freedom, for instance, look, in France, you know, the police is beating 1,000 of the people on the street, and nobody takes care about that. If something would happen in Poland, you know, you for sure could expect that you get some, inflow of the army of the policemen from Germany to taking care about that. Of course, I am joking, you know.
But because they say there are at least three kinds of France. The one is of those plutocrats who got lots of money, live in their palaces, mansions outside of the town, and they don't really care. Second, the France of immigrants, not integrated with French society. They don't consider themselves French, but they want to live on the expense of French state. And those poor French workers and middle class who were in recent 20 years put down in their social position. Their incomes went down. Their lifestyle is not the one that was in 1970s, 1980s. And police is accidentally beating very harsh those white, poor French, leaving alone the immigrants. And that, what it tells us.
So look, where we are, where we came, you know, the segregation of the people, you know, segregation of the people was a kind of 18 or 19 ages, right? Now in the 21st century, you know, we face, you know, these problems, and these problems are coming really from this ideology and the power of the capital. So therefore, the Institute of Schuman Thought is, basically not only promoting the Schuman ideas, but suggesting the implementation, like, for instance, building a relationship, you know, between, for instance, Polish people and the foreigners in the form of a so-called Christmas Eve without borders, where Polish families are inviting, you know, the foreigners to the table at home and share, you know, our Christian tradition.
They are migrants. They came here to live. So why shouldn't they learn the tradition and customs of this particular society.
Yeah, we should say the Schuman, you know, basically is very tied back with his ideas to the first, you know, first Republic of Poland, you know, first, which was acting over 400 years, you know, and we have a very good experience of the community. So, I mean, using that opportunity, I would like, you know, everybody to invite on the 12th of May for a third European Schuman Festival in Warsaw, Wilanów, where we will, you know, have different panels on the economy, on the community of European nations, on the Schuman fraction, and as well other, you know, events which are, going to, attract people not only from Poland, but from the other countries. And as well, we will have a certain meeting, you know, related to the Schuman groups in the national parliaments around Europe.
Because that's a new trend. That is, you are actually expanding the Schuman Institute of Schuman Thought abroad.
Abroad, yes. So we are initiating so-called the Schuman groups in the national parliament. Such a group is in the Polish parliament, on Lithuanian parliament, now in the process in Latvia and potentially in the Brussels. So it seems to be that the Schuman nowadays, when we talk about him and we just remind about the power of his, tools as well, not only the ideas, but tools, is very good to be applicable nowadays. Therefore, we call to create a so-called pan-European Schuman movement to basically outweigh this wrong directions taken by guys like Juncker, Timmermans or Tusk in the Brussels.
So this is our possible return to the sources,
That's right.
to our roots that should renew the European Union, hopefully.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Professor Jerzy Krysiak, thank you very much for participating in this show, for those thoughts that you shared and for the invitation.
Thank you very much.
May 12th, the day when the festival, Schuman Festival, will be here. If you happen to be in Warsaw, check out the website and see if you can participate in these events. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. I'm Paulina Otterstein, and now let's see what will happen tomorrow during the day. So nice and sunny in the eastern parts of the country, also in the south, and going up to Wrocław with up to 11 degrees over there, 9 degrees in central Poland, also in Bydgoszcz and Poznań. 9 degrees will be seen in Koszalin, Szczecin and Zielona Góra, and the minimum of 7 degrees in Gdańsk, but with a lot of sun. Also in Olsztyn and Białystok will be very sunny with 8 degrees Celsius. And now let's see what will happen tomorrow in Europe. So tomorrow the warmest will be Madrid with 26 degrees Celsius, 22 degrees will be seen in Lisbon, Portugal, 14 degrees in Bratislava, 9 degrees in Stockholm, Sweden, 9 degrees in Dublin as well, and up to 12 in London with a lot of sun. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon. Today we have a special surprise for you. We're taking you to the house of the great painter Jan Matejko. Let's go inside.
The National Museum in Krakow was established by a resolution of the Krakow City Council on October 7, 1879, as the first national museum institution at a time when the Polish people were deprived of their own statehood and country, which had been appropriated by the partitioning powers of Austria, Russia, and Germany. Until the end of World War I, it was the only such large museum accessible to the public in the Polish lands, and to this day remains the institution with the largest numbers of collections, buildings, and permanent exhibitions. The collection of the National Museum in Krakow was begun with Nero's torches, Henryk Szymanowski's painting presented to the city of Krakow by the artist himself on October 5, 1879, with the intention of creating a gallery of national art in the Sukiennica, the cloth hall. The following day, October 6, 1879, 39 artists attending the celebration of Józef Ignacy Kraszewski's 50 years of work as an author gathered in Konrad Wenzel's townhouse at the main market square and promised donations of their works to form the initial collection of the newly formed museum. The artist's example was soon emulated by private individuals who began to send donations to the museum in the Sukiennica.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. Today we're taking you to Krakow, to the house of Jan Matejko, a great Polish painter. Today my guest is Mrs. Marta Kłak-Ambroszkiewicz, the curator of the exhibition here and of the museum. Hello and welcome. Is it true that he started studying at the Academy of Fine Arts at the age of 13, which is very young?
Jan Matejko started his education in this house. As his father was a music teacher, Matejko family bought this house in 1794. Johann Peter Rosberg, Matejko's maternal grandfather, moved to Krakow from Saxenia. He chooses Krakow to settle and opens his crafts workshop on the ground floor of this house. He was a saddler maker. Here is also where the future parents of Jan Matejko met. Rosberg's daughter, Joanna Karolina, and Franciszek Matejko, who moved to Krakow to teach music. He teaches music to children while being very demanding. It must be remembered that in the 19th century education was very expensive, and as we know, there were 11 children in the house to be cared for. A w tym domu jest kilkanaścioro dzieci.
How many siblings did he have, Matejko?
Matejko rozpoczyna naukę w wieku 7 lat w szkole realnej u świętej Barbary. Potem chodzi do gimnazjum. Matejko began his education in Szkoła Realna at the age of 7. Later, he would join St. Anne's Junior High. Not having received a promotion to the final grade of junior high, a huge fight breaks out in this house. Jan Matejko's father, Franciszek, believed that his son's career had just come to an end. Franciszek expected Matejko to become a music teacher. He was raising him up to become one by teaching him music here in this house. Matejko's oldest brother, Franciszek, was already working in the Jagiellonian Library at the time. He was also a lecturer at the Jagiellonian University. He had the idea to show his teenage brother's sketches to Wojciech Statler, a professor of the Krakow Academy of Fine Arts. Statler lived on Floriańska Street at the time. He was practically a neighbor of the Matejko family. He looked at Jan's sketches and conditionally admitted him to the academy. After a year, it became apparent that Matejko was not only very gifted, but also extremely hard-working in terms of his interests. He then became a full-fledged student of the Krakow Academy of Fine Arts. And once he finished it, he did so receiving a gold medal, which allowed him to receive a scholarship to Munich. At the time, young artists growing up in the Austrian partition, known as Galicia, could only receive education from either Munich or Vienna. Mogli kształcić się artystycznie tylko w Monachium albo Wiedniu.
At the Monachium School for Artists?
Yes, the Academy of Fine Arts in Munich, that is where Matejko spent his time during scholarship. However, he was much more interested in, and that might interest our viewers, museum galleries. That is where he would interact with other artists' work. He would even buy photographs of their paintings, which led to us having a very broad photographic evidence of 19th century paintings. Matejko was also interested in various forms of museum presentations. The time he spent in Munich, which is the second half of the 19th century, is a time when there were no museums built in Krakow yet. Museums in Munich, which is where he first experienced them, and in other parts of Europe, which he visited as a famous artist later in his life, sparked his interest. And I think it is worth mentioning that this would prove to be beneficial. In 1885, Jan Matejko, as the director of the Krakow Academy of Fine Arts, became the first president of the committee organizing the National Museum in Krakow.
Just how strong the need to create such an institution was is exemplified by the fact that soon after the opening of the first museum exhibition in September 1883, the volume of donations grew exponentially. Not only single objects, but whole collections were donated. From the outset, the museum gathered works by contemporary and historic Polish artists from wherever they had lived or worked. The items collected included national mementos and objects connected with individuals recognized for their services to the country or otherwise relevant to national history and culture, including art prints, manuscripts, old prints, numismatics, decorative art objects, and militaria. As far as possible, examples of foreign art, including Far Eastern art, were collected as well. The turn of the 20th century coincided with a change of director at the National Museum, following the unexpected death of Professor Władysław Uszczkiewicz on May 23, 1900. The committee of the National Museum announced a competition which selected Dr. Felix Kopera, until then the director of Count Emeryk Hutenczapski's museum in Krakow, and his appointment followed on April 25, 1901. In the same period, the museum doubled its floor space after the Friends of the Art Society vacated the other wing of the Sukiennica. Following renovation work, an entirely new, considerably larger modern exhibit was arranged, which, in addition to showing artworks chronologically and thematically, also included archaeological and ethnographic objects. The collecting of the latter was discontinued soon thereafter due to shortage of space, and in light of the rise of institutions specializing in these areas.
I read once that Matejko used to paint with his nerves because he was smoking a lot of cigarettes and drinking a lot of coffee, and that was his fuel, kind of. Is that true?
Kiedyś jeden z kronikarzy przejeżdżających przez Rzeczpospolitą w XVII wieku.
A certain chronicle who happened to be in Poland in the 17th century said that the climate in Poland was wicked. Undoubtedly, the climate in Krakow, reportedly similar to the one in Madrid, leads people with low blood pressure to have very bad days. Today, from the perspective of years and years of thorough studying of Jan Matejko's life, I think that Jan Matejko indeed was a person suffering from low blood pressure and needed gallons upon gallons of coffee. He reportedly drank very strong coffee and unfortunately smoked a whole lot of tobacco, cigars to be precise. His eating habits were also poor. Jan Matejko was a deeply introverted person, withdrawn even. He relieved that Polish history inside himself, and he would only let his nerves get the better of him when a situation would force him to do so, especially when he needed to voice his opinion in a strong manner. His art was undoubtedly his life's mission, which he found in his early teens. Today, it might be hard to believe that a teenager would make his life's mission to illustrate Polish history. This was the most important element of his life. Family came right after that, his wife, children. But it must also be said that Jan Matejko was a deeply religious person. The devotion to the higher power was immensely important to him.
I życie duchowe, to oddanie Najwyższemu było dla niego również bardzo istotną sprawą.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at the city of Lublin, one of the oldest and most historical city of Eastern Poland. We'll be going to the Catholic University of Lublin to talk to a professor, a Polish Canadian, who wrote the first history book in English about Lublin. The Jagiellonian dynasty was known as one of the most famous and more prosperous dynasties of Poland, and they were originally from Lithuania, I believe.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lublin having been lying between Vilnius, which is the Lithuanian capital at the time, and Krakow, which is the Polish capital at the time, I would believe.
Yes.
How did the location benefit the city as a whole?
Well, among other things, it added an additional trade route because of the other trade route was more east and west. And this became a major trade route, but what I can also add that it also had a very significant political impact in that, well, the union between the Lithuanian dynasty involved a personal union between Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland. And each state was independent, even though they cooperated quite a bit. And, but among other things, trade sort of increased between them. King Jagiello even gave Lublin merchants rights to trade in Lithuania before he became king. Well, let's say the future, so I should say the future King Jagiello gave Lublin merchants rights to trade in Lithuania before, a few years before he became king. And actually, this became a politically important route as well, because the kings would go between their former, well, between their lands. Of course, there was a Lithuanian ruler that was more or less in command of the Duchy of Lithuania, as it came to be known. But the Jagiellonian king still had close connections with it, so he would travel that route quite often and would stay in Lublin quite often. So King Jagiello, the first king of that dynasty, stayed very often in Lublin. And actually, when he was coming from Vilnius to Krakow, he accepted baptism because to marry the Polish queen, he had to, he himself was a pagan, and he had to accept baptism. And he was acclaimed king here in Lublin before moving on to accept his crown, or to marry the Queen of Poland in Krakow. And actually, one of the architectural features in Lublin, the most striking one, is this chapel, the castle chapel, which the old chapel was a Gothic chapel. But since the Jagiellos had conquered quite a lot of Ruthenian lands from the Golden Horde, from the Mongols, they had quite a few Orthodox citizens. And Jagiello was very familiar with Orthodox art. And so he wanted the art in the chapel to be painted by Orthodox painters. So it is more or less a kind of Catholic doctrine, but the style is Byzantine style. It's Orthodox style. And it's very, very striking. It's a kind of, well, Pope John Paul talks about the two lungs, Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and in relation to that, the Latin and the Eastern Christianity. And here is, in Lublin, is where that meets in that chapel. So yes, so that trade route was very important, and Lublin played an important role. Above and beyond this, this union between Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland got closer and closer in various stages. Now, what's interesting about the chapel, King Jagiello commissioned the chapel shortly after his victory over the Teutonic Knights in Grunwald. The Poles say Grunwald. I think in English you talk about the Battle of Tannenberg. And this, well, this was also one of the reasons for the union, for the personal union, because both the Kingdom of Poland and the and the Lithuanians had problems with the Teutonic Knights, the Poles at that point actually invited the Teutonic Knights. But, well, we know that when international players come in and see opportunity knocking, they claimed a lot of land for themselves, and they created all these problems for the Poles as well as the Lithuanians. So the Poles and Lithuanians joined, and this was also one of the reasons for Jagiello to accept Latin Christianity, because that would theoretically that would take away the excuse of the Teutonic Knights, but of course they still had to go through that battle. But this beautiful chapel is what we have.
In 1386, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, Jogaila, married Jadwiga of Poland, who had earlier officially been declared King of Poland. With this personal union between two states, the Jagiellonian dynasty, hailing from Lithuania, became the hereditary rulers of Poland. Next up, we will ask Professor Grabowski how Lublin benefited from the center of gravity of Poland moving eastward with the new Lithuanian dynasty in power.
As the Jagiellonian dynasty gained in power, I would imagine the center of gravity would shift to the eastern part of Poland. And I was wondering how that shift of importance have an effect on Lublin as a whole.
Well, the answer to that question depends on when. Because the first period, basically, the Jagiellonians had control over the east. So as what that meant, among other things, is that that Lublin is further within the kingdom of Poland. That there's a kind of another boundary. So there's the Lithuanian land, so you have a friendly territory to the east.
Right.
So that, for Lublin as a trading center, that was important.
Right.
So the trade was easier further to the east. And that was one of the major initial impacts. Of course, later on, there would be trouble. But for the time being, the benefits outweighed the problems, so to say.
Right. As we have seen today, Lublin has a very long, yet at times dramatic history. But places such as the Catholic University of Lublin sufficiently demonstrated the city spirit and their love for freedom. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily. We're on an excursion to the city of Łódź. It's right in the center of the country. Known as the Polish Manchester, it's a city of art and industry. And that's where we are for this series of episodes. Łódź is famous for factories making all kinds of things, as we'll see. In its heyday, it supplied textiles to the whole of Europe. In post-World War II Poland, Łódź also became a factory of dreams. It was the site of the Warsaw Film School at Łódź, and it earned the city the sobriquet of Hollywood. That's right, the Hollywood of Poland. The film school produced such top talents as Roman Polanski, Andrzej Wajda, and Krzysztof Kieślowski, and many others, as we'll see. There are more superlatives in this city, about 75 miles southwest of Warsaw, the capital. Łódź boasts the largest shopping center in Poland, Manufaktura. It's made out of an old factory complex. That's the largest shopping center in Poland. It also boasts the longest pedestrian street in the country, Piotrkowska, where you will find all manner of restaurants, clubs, and just about everything else you'd expect on a pedestrian street, including a statue of Arthur Rubinstein, the famous pianist who was from Łódź. And the pièce de résistance, marrying both technology and art, is the Science and Technology Museum next to the railway station. This is a world-class museum. It looks like something that belongs in the Smithsonian Institution. It's interactive and impressive. That's Łódź, and that's where we are on Poland Daily Travel, your destination for perhaps the best travel about Poland you'll find anywhere. Poland Daily Travel. Like us on YouTube and like us on Facebook. We like you. Watch us now. What does this say? Założenie?
Zasłużeni dla Łodzi. People who contributed, I guess, in something that is meaningful to Łódź.
Okay.
Piłsudski, Raymond, Tuwim. Who else do we have?
I don't know. Who is Tuwim? I don't
he
know.
was an author, a poet, a
like
writer.
Raymond was a famous. Raymond won the
but
Nobel
different
Prize.
things, yes.
Yeah.
And Tuwim was Jewish as well, as far as I know. He was from Łódź.
Okay, this Tuwim Street is down there.
Yes,
back,
there is.
Back the other way.
Yeah. Aleksander Kamiński also. He wrote Kamienie na Szaniec.
Okay.
Yeah. And other people who are.
Everybody knows
important,
Piłsudski.
yeah.
We said Rubinstein, of course. This is
Władysław
Rubinstein. This is Rubinstein Avenue.
Yeah.
Right here, isn't it? Yeah. His house across the street. Yeah. Who are some of the others? Yeah, Kieślowski.
We already talked about him.
We talked about
Zamenhof.
Who is Zamenhof?
Staszic. Zamenhof. I'm not sure, to be honest. We should find out.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on all the famous people of Łódź. I mean, we know some of them.
Yeah.
But and the unknown Jewish people too is one of the things. Anonimowy Żyd, which means unknown Jewish people, right?
Jew.
Yeah, the anonymous Jew means one, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the unknown soldier.
Yeah.
It means there must be something related to the Holocaust. And then all of these people are looking out windows, aren't they?
They are, yes. It's interesting. I wonder who made this.
It's a good idea, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, if we
it really draws
back,
attention when you're walking down Piotrkowska Street.
Yeah. If we step back, you can get a good look. But do you see Kieślowski? I don't see him.
No, but he must be somewhere.
And somebody here looks like a king.
Jagiełło, yes.
Well, that's Jagiełło. And up here is Piłsudski. He's obvious.
Yeah.
He's in the highest window, of course, looking down on everyone and being in charge. Who are some of these other? I just don't see. I don't know the others.
I don't know all of the faces of the people.
Yeah. And the only ones I recognize are
Isn't it Kieślowski up there?
Where?
Up
At the
there?
very top?
Yes.
It might be meant to be, but he always wore glasses. Well, he did a lot of the time, not always. I don't know. I can't see him.
Not sure.
But it's certainly interesting. Listen, let's go. Should we go for a walk back down the street a little bit?
Yeah, why not?
And just get a feeling of what's going on.
It seems like a really nice area, this Piotrkowska Street.
Yeah, we can sort of...
let's do it.
It's Friday evening, and people are easing into the evening, so let's go take a walk. Maybe we'll see a good restaurant.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Hungry?
No, I'm not hungry. Not yet. Yeah, okay. Actually, we could get run over because there's a lot of bicycles. We better go here. Yeah, now if you look down here, you can see how long the street is.
It's 4.2 kilometers, I think.
It's just the pedestrian part.
The Piotrkowska, yeah.
Yeah, but there's another part which is not pedestrian that goes on and on. But 4.2 kilometers is pretty long for a pedestrian street, isn't it?
Very long.
So you look, you can see down here. Camera, look down there and see what we got. Look at that. Okay. I guess we're about halfway. Now let's look the other way. Well, we can't see all the way down.
No, it goes a bit uphill.
If we look the other way, it's going uphill a little bit, so we can't really see. But this is pedestrian. This is all pedestrian. Okay, Poland Daily Travel. We're going to go on down Piotrkowska a bit more. Stick with us on a Friday evening. Be right back. This is real, European stuff.
Except in Europe, they look a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got a typical courtyard. There's a lot of these off of Piotrowska Street, either side. And it's unusual because if you're used to Warsaw, you're used to these kind of things having been destroyed. There's not as many of these in the city because the buildings that were built up later, after the Second World War, are quite different. But here, everything is very uniform. You see courtyard like this, there's one directly opposite on the other side, and it's very geometric the whole way. When you come in, this looks like it's been redone, don't you think?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's all very similar, and probably look a lot better in the sunlight. And you got the tons of these new bistros that are popping up all over, because Łódź is a city under construction. And every part of the city is under construction. The educational part, as we saw in the exhibition that we went to, the technology exhibition, the conversion of the train station, manufactura, converting old buildings into flats, into hotels, into big shopping centers, into places to eat. And that is what the spirit of the city is about. So if you want to see a mixture of real modern stuff, yeah, and the modern conversion of Europe, and you want to see some tradition, you can see it. You can see it here in Łódź. It's a city transforming, putting on its makeup, so to speak, to make itself look a lot better.
That's a nice thing,
isn't it? It's sort of.
It perfectly describes Łódź.
Yeah, it's putting on a nice coat of makeup, and boy, they're doing a good job. And I guess it's an example of how this whole country has converted itself over the last 10, 15 years, really. Okay, more from Poland Daily Travel. We're going to keep walking on Piotrowska, show you some more sights. Hey, folks.
We are here with who?
What's his name?
Władysław Remont.
That's right. And what did he do?
He wrote a few books, which are quite significant, like Chłopi, for which he won a Nobel Prize, right?
Right, Chłopi, which is peasants.
Yeah.
Yeah. In translation, what else did he write? He wrote
The Promised Land.
The Promised Land, the one we were talking about before.
Yeah.
With Tom.
Yes.
And was based on the factory at Manufactura. So
exactly.
we're coming full circle. This guy lived here. He wrote a book about the guys who became so famous, creating that factory called that is now Manufactura, the shopping area and the hotel, etc., where we showed you earlier in an earlier episode. This fellow is one of the great writers of the 20th century, along with other Poles, Joseph Conrad and Henryk Sienkiewicz, right? Henryk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who these are three early Polish Nobel Prize for literature winners. And anyway, this is his facsimile. So they take not only their literature, but their music with Mr. Rubinstein as well. They take their arts seriously in Łódź. And we saw about the film school as well. So this is a city which is not just, well, how would you describe it? Do you mind if I put my head there?
I think he does mind.
He minds, doesn't he?
It's not Henrik, but this one.
I shouldn't do that. I might mess up his hair. It's even more frozen than mine is under there with all that hairspray. It was standing straight up. That's why I'm wearing the cap. If I was a handsome man like this fella, I wouldn't have to wear this cap, would I? Yeah.
I want to pet him.
Don't agree with that.
No, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
I'm totally not.
You're not agreeing.
So what
with
were
that.
you saying? How would I describe the city?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a mix of nice and ugly, or
Yeah.
interesting and...
Banal. It's a mixture of business and art.
Yeah.
You have this huge...
Of elegance and dirtiness.
Yes, yeah. And I think that Mr. Remont can be said to capture
that real spirit of this city, even though it was 100 years ago or so. He captures the real spirit of what Łódź is, doesn't he? Because he writes about business, and yet he's a great artist. Great subject for art is business, and he proves it, because the business is what made a city like this grow to prominence during the industrial age. At any rate, the lights just came on.
Yay.
And remember, on the previous episode, they were talking about how 3,000 lights came on just like that from the power station.
Oh, yeah, true.
In was it 1929 or 1930?
1930, I think.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah. It was right around then. So that power station made the lights go on. These very street lamps go on almost 100 years ago. Well, Mr. Raymond.
Okay, goodbye.
We've said a lot about you, and it's well deserved. You were a great man, and your works live on, and you're still a great man, and a great inspiration to all of us. Read a couple of his books. Mr. Raymond, he's a good man. We're going to continue and go on down the street a bit. Okay, stay with us. Poland Daily Travel. We're in Łódź.